Good morning, my name is McKellar-Ellingson and this is my term paper Research Methods Proposal Presentation. The working title is The Use of Focus Groups to Establish Benefits as a Method to Discover, Interpret, and Share Knowledge. Using focus groups, we're able to ask questions like, what are they thinking? What are their concerns, desires, ideas? Within a focus group, there's the ability to collect opinions from the affected community, which is critical to the implementation of effective Indigenous directives and programs. Focus groups also are able to capture emotional aspects of what a person thinks and wants, and therefore it's qualitative research. The information obtained from focus groups is more powerful than that of surveys because you have the opportunity to ask questions that can't easily be fielded as written answers. This isn't the case where language or literacy may be a barrier. In addition, one of the biggest benefits of a focus group or sharing circle is that participants often build upon others' statements in a true collaboration of ideas, which would not happen in a one-on-one interview. My topic research is how to effectively use focus group research to gain insight and allow input from various individuals or groups that may often be silenced during any decision-making process. Tahui Smith states, decolonizing methodologies is about the insertion of Indigenous principle into research methodology so that research practices can play a role in the assertion of Indigenous peoples' rights and sovereignty. Therefore, gaining data through focused conversations that emulate a sharing circle in terms of principles, safe space, empathy, unity, and connectivity among the participants is key in the process of decolonizing of methodologies. So the issue is Indigenous people are deeply cynical about the capacity, motives, and methodologies of Western research to deliver any beliefs to Indigenous peoples, whom science has long regarded, indeed has classified as being non-human. It is because of this cynicism that Indigenous have an expectation that methods and benefits are established in advance, and this stipulation is in alignment with the focus group method and is mitigated as focus groups often have homework to consider prior to coming together. The use of focus groups need to be part of a hybrid of research methods in order to provide a better user-centered design. Focus groups are only qualitative, for example, and they would pair well with another method that gives rise to quantitative data wherever practicable. Focus groups can either be Indigenous or non-Indigenous led, cultivating empathy as well as respect for culture. The focus group facilitator has the opportunity to immediately follow up with comments and questions that are brought up during the circle. A good facilitator, therefore, must be able to listen attentively, have adequate knowledge of the subject, be unbiased, and believe that every participant has something to offer to the discussion. My first source in research was a 2017 article in the Canadian Journal of Native Studies called Sharing Circle versus Focus Group in the Development of Diabetic Retinopathy Mobile Health, Intervention for Aboriginal Women. A sharing circle is described as an Indigenous method that is similar to the focus group in the manner of execution, but unique by its principles. The circle is symbolic where all things are related, incorporating Indigenous protocols, values, beliefs, and traditions, such as smudging. The author argues that considering a traditional and cultural perspective of Aboriginal people, particularly in respect to health and the importance of adapting health interventions to the context of the population, it is imperative to explore alternatives to the focus group that are culturally appropriate methods that reflect Indigenous epistemology in the development of health interventions. Health researchers often use focus groups to evaluate health services and explore the views of marginalized populations. My second source in research was a 2012 article in the Journal of the Canadian Association of Curriculum Studies called Interconnecting Aboriginal and Western Paradigms in Post-Secondary Science Education, an Action Research Approach. In this focus group, careful attention was paid to ensure each participant understood their opinions about post-secondary science education was essential. The researcher is a post-secondary educator and motivated by the lack of Aboriginal representation and success in post-secondary science education in particular. The purpose of this study was to initiate and develop collaborative relationships between the Blackfoot community and the university, given the institution's central location within the southern Alberta community of Lethbridge. The group was also made up of individuals that were either currently taking or had graduated from a post-secondary science program. The author wanted to qualitatively understand from the Blackfoot perspective 4 things. What do members of the Blackfoot community perceive as reasons for low post-secondary participation rates, particularly in science? Number 2, what do members of the Blackfoot community perceive is needed to increase for participation rates in science to increase? Number 3, how can holistic traditional Aboriginal teachings and concepts bridge the sciences and the contemporary university learning environment? And finally, how can relationships between the Blackfoot and the University of Lethbridge communities be fostered? She determined 5 things. Number 1, they felt it is critical to encourage Aboriginal culture and academic sensitivity in instructors. Number 2, members of the dialogue focus group felt that cultural relevance and applicability are critical to Aboriginal student engagement and learning. Number 3, effective communication is critical to Aboriginal learning. Aboriginal students are often intimidated by authority. Number 4, in the Blackfoot culture, all are considered to be equal. Therefore, group work and teamwork are more effective ways of learning for Aboriginal students. The members of the dialogue focus group felt that Western competitive, individualistic way of education was an impediment to learning for Aboriginal students. And finally, storytelling and oratory learning was essential. For Indigenous students, science and mathematics are difficult subjects as the concepts and traditional Western ways of teaching these subjects are far removed from the Indigenous ways of knowing and learning. This is a common ground with the idea of Western medicine and its implementation on Indigenous communities. My working thesis is focus groups are an essential research method that is relevant to Indigenous peoples, facilitating much needed engagement and thereby increasing the likelihood of more effective initiatives and commitment for the implementation within their respective communities. Thank you so much for listening.